Good evening. You're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. Israeli forces fire tear gas at Palestinian protesters near Gaza-Israel border. The UN humanitarian advisor says millions of civilians are still caught up in the 7-year-old Syrian conflict. And the Sultanate wins the 3rd rank in the 4th International Schools Arabic Debating Championship held in Doha. Those were the headlines, and now for the news in detail. Hundreds of Palestinians today headed to Gaza's border fence with Israel for weekly protests that organizers from the Hamas group have said might culminate in a mass breach later this month. About 300 Palestinians gathered today near one of the 5 protest camps set up several hundred meters from the fence. A few moved closer to the fence, throwing stones and burning tires. Israeli soldiers fired live rounds and tear gas. Gaza health officials said 10 people were hurt. Since weekly marches began in late March, 39 protesters have been killed and more than 1,700 wounded by army fire. Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas was re-elected as chairman of the Palestine Liberation Organization's PLO Executive Committee today, as the veteran leader sought to renew his legitimacy while installing loyalists who he hopes will eventually continue his legacy. The expected reappointment came at the end of a 4-day meeting by the Palestinian National Council, PNC, in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. The PNC chose a new executive committee, the most senior body of the PLO. Azam al-Ahmed, a staunch ally of Abbas, was among 9 people elected to the 15-member committee and announced the re-election. The PNC was governed by Abbas in part to forge a strategy in response to US President Donald Trump's decisions to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital and to move the US embassy to the city. 82-year-old Abbas is thought to have achieved most of his goals at the meeting, including the removal from the committee of some of his rivals. A senior UN official said yesterday that Syria's war rages unabated despite a fall in the number of besieged civilians, warning of a potential worsening of the conflict in the rebel-controlled governorate of Idlib. UN humanitarian advisor Jan Egeland said millions of civilians were still caught up in the 7-year-old conflict, and many who escaped battle zones had to seek shelter in overcrowded camps for the displaced in Idlib in the northwest. The Idlib region remains the largest populated area of Syria in the hands of insurgents fighting the Damascus government. Syrians have poured into Idlib at an accelerating rate over the last 2 years from areas recaptured by the army. Egeland said about 11,000 Syrians are still under siege and 2 million are hard to reach with humanitarian aid, compared to 625,000 under siege and 4.6 million who were hard to reach a year ago. In line with the Sultanate's interest to empower women to assume leadership positions and more productive roles in the community, an Omani delegation headed by Her Excellency Aisha bin Khalfan bin Jumail Al Siyabiya, chairperson of the Public Authority for Handicraft Industries, participated in 14th extraordinary meeting for the Executive Board of Arab Women Association, which was held in Cairo. The board discussed and reviewed the first quarter management report and the work program for the organization until the end of year 2018. After the meeting, the participants inspected the new building for Arab Women Association and watched a documentary movie on the organization activities. Few countries are as vulnerable to the Middle East's mayhem as Lebanon, which in recent years has taken in 1 million refugees from the catastrophic war in neighboring Syria. Yet campaigning for this weekend's parliamentary election, the first in a decade, has timidly sidestepped the big issues, leaving many Lebanese expecting more of the same. The voting for 128 parliament seats is expected to be a test of sorts for the country's incumbent Prime Minister Saad Hariri and his opponents from Hezbollah. Amid the regional turmoil, most of the campaigning has revolved around platforms of stability and economic growth, while many of Lebanon's Civil War-era political titans are set to return. The last time elections were held in Lebanon was in 2009, and the House's term was supposed to expire in 2013. A heatwave gripped Pakistan's southern port city of Karachi as the Meteorological Office warned temperatures would rise to 43 degrees Celsius. There was little traffic on the streets and people gathered outside juice shops, some covering their heads and faces with wet cloths. In view of the high temperature forecast, medical practitioners have advised the citizens to adopt certain precautionary measures. No casualties were reported, but spokesman for ED Rescue said they were fully prepared if the conditions turned bad. The city of Nawab Shah in southern Pakistan set a global record temperature for the month of April. In 2015, a heat wave hit Pakistan's southern city of Karachi and killed more than 1,000 people. Local authorities said today that 6 people have drowned in Kenya in overnight flooding and 11 others are missing, the latest of dozens of deaths caused by heavy seasonal rains in recent weeks. A Red Cross official said about 100 people are thought to have died and about 260,000 have been displaced by the heavy rains since March, the majority of them in Tana River, Kilifi and Mandera counties. The organization launched an appeal to provide shelter, food and medical assistance, warning the floods could trigger or worsen outbreaks of diseases such as malaria and cholera. Floods from seasonal rains hit as the East African nation was recovering from a devastating drought last year that affected half of its countries. Hawaii's Kilauea volcano erupted yesterday, sending lava shooting into the air in a residential neighborhood and prompting mandatory evacuation orders for nearby homes. Hawaii County said steam and lava poured out of a crack in Leilani Estates, which is near the town of Pahoa on the Big Island, also known as the island of Hawaii. Lava fountains were shooting 46 meters in the air, and molten lava spread out over an area about 180 meters wide behind one house in Leilani Estates. Officials said there is no way to predict how long the eruption will continue. Still to come in our news bulletin. Lighting up the sky of Chinese ancient city of Xi'an, over 1,300 illuminated drones break the world record for the most unmanned aerial vehicles simultaneously airborne. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman Television. Her Excellency Dr. Madiha bint Ahmed Al-Shaybaniya, Minister of Education, received students who have excelled in extracurricular activities for the current school year. Her Excellency conveyed her appreciation for the efforts exerted by students, school management and teachers in these participations, which achieved advanced ranks. Participants in various extracurricular activities like Kuwait Ibtikar Scientific Competition Awards, the 11th Arab Open Robotics Championship and the 4th International Schools Arabic Debating Championship were honored. The Sultanate won the 3rd rank in the 4th International Schools Arabic Debating Championship, which was held in Doha. To celebrate this achievement and commemorate their efforts, the participating team was honored as part of students and teachers who excelled in extracurricular activities in the Wilayat of Ibri. The awards ceremony, which was held under the auspices of His Excellency Khalid bin Hilal Al-Ma'wali, Chairman of the Shura Council, honored more than 160 students, teachers and school management boards for their outstanding achievements during this school year. Under the theme Change is on its way, Directorate General of Education in the Governorate of North Sharqiya organized Education Aids exhibition for science and mathematics for early grades from 1st to 4th. The exhibition highlights Cambridge International Primary Programme for Mathematics and Science, which the Ministry is currently applying for early grades. It is worth mentioning that the programme is primarily oriented towards skills rather than knowledge, which is more suitable for junior students. The officer cadets in the Sultan Qaboos Academy for Police Sciences undergo a number of preparations including physical fitness, military and sports aspects. They also acquire knowledge in various legal and police sciences so as to make them capable to perform their duties and tasks efficiently. It is worth mentioning that the Sultan Qaboos Academy for Police Sciences signed a number of memorandums of cooperation with the aim to develop the education environment and programs, in addition to enhance the relation between academy and various universities and colleges around the Sultanate. Activities of the Milking Festival were launched in the Wilaya of Mudaibi in the Governorate of North Sharqiya. It witnessed a wide participation from camel owners and those interested in such traditional events. The festival included 3 rounds and beautification competitions. It was accompanied by traditional singing arts, poetry and some camel races. At the end, the winners were honoured. Chinese drone company UAV Ehang Egret breaks world record with over 1,300 dancing drones forming different shapes and icons and Chinese characters over the Chinese ancient city of Xi'an skyline. More details in the following report.
Lighting up the sky of Chinese ancient city of Xi'an, 1,374 illuminated drones broke a Guinness World Record earlier this week for the most unmanned earlier vehicles simultaneously airborne. The drones from Chinese drone company UAV firm Ehang Egret were flown simultaneously in a 30-minute flight that involved the drones spread over a kilometer. It clinched the record by 156 drones from US technology firm Intel, which in February flew 1,218 drones simultaneously at the Winter Olympic Games in South Korea. As part of the performance, the drone formation spelled out a popular political slogan and paid tribute to President Xi Jinping's cornerstone foreign policy initiative, One Belt, One Road. China has championed rapid development in its tech sector in a bid to build world-leading firms and reduce dependence on foreign products, including semiconductors, robots and drones. Drone firm Ehang first made headlines in 2016 when it unveiled the passenger drone concepts, which it said would retail at up to $300,000. Earlier this year, the company said it has completed tests for the vehicle, which is capable of carrying one person at speeds of up to 130 kilometers per hour.
And now for the general weather forecast around the Sultanate. Clear skies will prevail over the Sultanate with chances of low clouds and fog late at night and early morning over the coastal areas of the Arabian Sea. Winds will be north to northwesterly light to moderate. Seas will be slight with a maximum wave height of 1.25 meters. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. Israeli forces fire tear gas at Palestinian protesters near Gaza-Israel border. The UN humanitarian advisor says millions of civilians are still caught up in the 7-year-old Syrian conflict. And the Sultanate wins the 3rd rank in the 4th International Schools Arabic Debating Championship held in Doha. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, it's good night.